In my opinion, the Catholic way to respond to the issue of whether or not to have Confederate statues in public is to remove all of them from public viewing, but to have them in museums. I say this because then you would have both parties happy. You would have the parties who were deeply affected by these statues not have to see them in public at parks or other places that you might generally see these statues, like in cities and whatnot, but you still have those people who care about the history of these statues be able to see them at museums. So in that way, both parties are happy. We still preserve the human dignity of those mistreated in slavery while preserving the history that comes with the statues. And by getting rid of these, we can still stand in solidarity with Black Americans just by removing them from public, as well as standing up to those previous unjust structures. This is an issue that me, at least personally, won't keep up with because at the end of the day, they are just statues, and I feel like nowadays there's more actual humanitarian and real racial issues that go not only in the U.S. but around the world that deserve more attention than these statues that, to be quite honest, are just statues. They might signify things and ideas from the past that we might think antiquated or don't line up with our way we think about things nowadays, but at the end of the day, they are still statues. And I feel like a person with real racial inequality being treated poorly in America, with whether it be whatever racial injustices, deserves more attention than these statues. And I say this because if a, if a political candidate were to have an opinion on these statues, it wouldn't really affect me if I would vote for them or not, because I think that political candidates have way more to say than just their opinion on these statues. And I feel like it's such a divisive issue that no matter like who has what opinion, it doesn't like it's so divisive. Like it's everyone has their own opinion of what's to do with these statues. I feel like it's not really like there's a right or wrong answer. It's just kind of like the context of how they answer it. Like, some people just want to preserve the history, and there's nothing wrong with that, and some people just don't want to see it, and it's fine. So I feel like their opinion on this issue wouldn't really affect if I would vote them as candidates, because I feel like it's a very minuscule part of, like, what encompasses that political, or a political candidate, because they have ideas on other things. And I feel like their ideas on other things would probably make me want to vote for them more than the ideas they have on these antiquated statues that really, in the grand scheme of things, don't really mean that much unless like they're just statues at the end of the day. This is my opinion on the Catholic way to respond to whether or not to remove Confederate statues from public viewing, as well as whether a political candidate's opinion on statues would make me want to vote for them or not, and as well as what I think on the issue of whether or not I'm going to be keeping up with updates regarding these Confederate statues.
I believe that the Catholic way to respond to Confederate statues in public is to remove all of the Confederate statues. I believe that the removal of Confederate statues goes along with the key facets of Catholic social teaching. The three key facets that I think would go along the best with the removal would be change unjust structures, promotion of the common good, and rights and responsibilities. For change unjust structures, the statues usually represent Confederate generals or different people in the army, and many people believe that the statues are symbolized with slavery and a promotion of slavery. So many would call those unjust structures that should be removed. The promotion of common good would be that there's a divide in the nation through race, and removing the statues would be better for the common good, for people to be united and to be together. And rights and responsibilities. I feel like we have a responsibility to take down the statues because the statues are often symbolized with slavery and the glorification of slavery. And the African American group of people that the statues affect the most are most of them are extremely opposed to the statues and believe that they should be taken down. My personal belief on the issue of Confederate statues in public is that the statues should be taken down and moved into a fallen statue park where the statues could all be taken. All the Confederate statues could be taken to a park that could be historic for all those statues, and each statue could receive a plaque telling what happened, what it symbolizes, and who they were. And then also in this area, there could be um, slavery monuments and different things honoring those who died in slavery and were forced into slavery. And I think that compares pretty well with the Catholic response of trying to remove the statues and um, having a sense of unity. I think that Confederate statues in public is a topic that I will stay up to date on. I think I will stay up to date on this topic because there's been a lot of racial protests and different things, the BLM movement, and different things going on with the country. I think the Confederate statues go along with that, so I think it's pretty relevant to today's media, and it should be something that people are concerned about or following.
We believe that the Christian solution to this method is just to take down the Confederate statues because it offends certain people, and the church is all about being universal and loving everyone and being just welcoming to people. And if people don't feel welcome, then I think the church should act on it. And some people do see the statues as violating the life and dignity of the human person, which is another thing the church is against. So I think that as Catholics, you should definitely be for the removal of Confederate statues in the United States. Solidarity is also a phrase that is commonly associated with the struggle of African Americans in this country, and that is also a core value of Christians. So I think it just makes sense. Now, my personal opinions vary very vastly from the Christian opinion. I think that the statues should just be kept up because they're really just statues. And I mean, they're a part of our history. We can't just get rid of them, forget about them. I think that it matters where they are historically. They're put there for a reason, whatever reason that was. It's just good to understand the historical context of the time, instead of just judging and saying, oh, it's racist, instead of just, yes, it is racist, but you have to kind of understand the history and learn to appreciate it from historical context. I think the nation can effectively respond to this by encouraging debate younger on in the developmental cycle in schooling, and just educating these kids on the history behind great conflicts like the Civil War and about slavery, but just making sure that kids know all the angles and that they're not just fed a bias through some political machine. Something very major about this topic that I learned when I was just researching this topic is just the amount of statues that were built way later on, like 30, 40 years after the war, 50, 60, like even 1920s, 30s, like there were still Confederate statues being put up long after the war. And I mean, that really opened my eyes because I mean, before I was like way in the other camp, but now like I'm still on the side of to keep them up. But I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from because they were just going up at a time when, black people were just oppressed